Welcome to our Daytona Ultimate Guide. Now, before we begin, shout out to Antonio Lobato. Happy birthday, mate. Let's go over this incredible, epic race event. Now, we're going to give you a guide on the dry setup, the wet setup. There's a Google Drive link that you guys can have access to download. Another video that we did, we've already run the lap in the dry, which you guys have already seen. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. It was one of our latest videos. Today we're going to go over some of the strategies that work really well during a 24-hour race. But more importantly, I'm going to focus today on the wet setup and the dry to wet conditions and go over all that. And you have the wet setup as well. Now, one of the key things throughout this race is you need to save fuel. The best way to save fuel is to lift off at the bus stop and lift off at turn 1. Make sure that you work together as a team. Now, 3 seconds or 3 minutes. What I mean by that is give up 3 seconds to let a GTP car or an LMP2 car go past compared to losing 3 minutes in the pits of repairs. Really important. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a 24-hour race. Make sure that as a team you guys are working together. Make sure that you got your everything set up as far as who's doing what. If you are driving the night shifts, make sure that you've got a form of communicating with the team. Should your computer go wrong or pedals go wrong or something happens, right? Anything can happen throughout this race. So make sure that you guys work together as a team. Remember, 3 seconds or 3 minutes. Get out of the way for the GDP cars if you must. Work together. Be very consistent in the dry. And now we're going to start to talk about the wet weather and what are some of the key things to look out for. Now, some of the key things to look out for in the wet is the transition from wet to dry. At some point, the track is going to dry up again. Now, one of the key things that I want you guys to really consider in this sort of format is that if you go on the dry tire too soon, it can heavily impact you. So what you want to do is you just want to be patient, wait for the others, see who makes the first move onto the dry tire, and actually take a good look at the kind of lap times that they're doing now that they've switched over to a dry tire. I'm going to show you now a clip of what it's like when you go on the dry tire for too soon. So this is me coming out of the pits on a dry tire on a very wet track, and as you can see, there is just absolutely no traction. So if you do this, you're gonna lose anywhere up to 2 to 3 seconds just to hobble back to make it. Now, one of the key things on a wet Daytona track is this particular section coming up. Whether you're on a wet tire or a dry tire, this particular next part of the track, this corner coming up, it is absolute like ice. What you want to do is you want to minimize your speed to almost like standing still, and you'll see it in the next lap coming up what I mean by that. So make sure that you don't rush to get into a dry tire. Now, this is my lap, very good lap, very consistent compared to the others. Now, you'll notice that there's not too much of a difference. So turn 1, you've got to be really careful on accelerating, right? You want to make sure that you really work on your throttle. You don't just want to sit there and wheel spin. Like, you're just not going to go anywhere. You want to brake 25 to 30 meters before you would in the dry. And again, listen to how I'm accelerating coming out of the corners. It's really important to make sure that just don't over rev it, right? Just don't spin, brake nice and early, still carry that corner speed, right? I mean, you can see here, like, it's actually not that bad in the wet, but just be careful on the corner exit. Now, this particular corner coming up, watch how I do this. This is the proper way to do it. You got to slow right down, really slow the car down, and then just be really smooth coming out of here. You can just watch out for that wheel spin. If you find yourself lots of wheel spin, just focus on being very smooth with the accelerator. This part of the track is fine. In fact, a lot of the track, we're very lucky for this particular endurance event, it's actually not that bad. It's going to be very straightforward. make sure that you lower your middle of the corner speed, obviously, because you are racing in the wet. So especially through the bus stop section, you just want to reduce your speed, especially through this particular section. When you go over those curbs, it will spin and it will try and flick you off. If you can avoid them, do it. But if you have to go over them, just be ready to correct the steering inputs. But apart from that, follow the setup, follow the guide, do lots of practice. Make sure that you're practicing in the wet, make sure that you're practicing in the dry, make sure your other teammates are practicing with you as well, and there is that level of commitment there. But overall, the most important thing is it is one of the best events of the year. Enjoy every moment. The highs, the lows, the in the pits, the people cutting you off, all of it, that's going to be a factor throughout the 350 laps. And I hope to see you do one of these at the end of the Daytona 24-hour. If you do get a great result because of this video, make sure you come back, make sure you comment. Let's go!